All right. So, hello, good afternoon. Welcome everyone who has joined today. I really appreciate you guys taking your time to come here and just try and learn how to build your LinkedIn profile and how to network within LinkedIn. So, quick introductions for myself. My name is Michael Refuerzo. I have been on LinkedIn now for a year. My real job is in the active duty U.S. Navy. I am an 18-year Navy chief. My current position is a system and network administrator for 2 classified networks within a submarine stationed out of Silverdale, Washington, which is kind of next to Seattle. What we're going to cover today, we're going to cover LinkedIn profiles in its entirety. We're going to cover everything from as soon as you see your profile, what do you put in your profile? How do recruiters find you? What do you need to do to be found? And then we're going to cover networking as a whole. As I mentioned before during my intro, we talked about my year on LinkedIn. So in the first year of LinkedIn that I've spent, I really had no clue what I was doing. I joined LinkedIn. I had a profile. I didn't really have anything on there. I think my first profile picture was actually a selfie of me while I was sitting in the car because I was building my LinkedIn profile in the car one morning, and I just put that in there. I'm like, oh yeah, that'll be good enough for now. It wasn't until later I realized that I was really just hurting myself. So for 6 months, I had that selfie photo of myself before I finally realized, oh man, like I need to change this because it doesn't really speak to who I am. So before we kick this off, what I'd like to do is go around the room and just kind of introduce yourself really quick if you'd like to. Obviously, you don't have to, but I'd just like to see, what are you trying to get out of today's topic? Are you trying to learn something specific about LinkedIn, how to network, how to grow your network as a whole? So just go off mute as you want to and just go around the room, I guess we'll call it, right?
I'll go. My name is Grace. I've been in development, and I wanted to switch gears within tech. So I wanted to get into more security, and also want to learn how to eventually, when I really make my LinkedIn profile active again, how to, right now I'm networking, but just how to make it more, I don't know if appealing is the word, but I guess accessible to opportunities.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi. Are you guys able to hear me?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi. My name is Mithun. I just started as a service desk analyst with Compugen. That was after about, I would say, 3 months of struggle, thanks to Kevin and a lot of the alumni at Job Culture that helped me out. My goal from here is to be able to be found for the certain roles and responsibilities that I want to work with. At the same time, also network with the same kind of people, so they can like as I've seen with profiles, a lot of people recommend each other, with certain great comments, the certain great work they've done. So yeah, that's what my initial idea is.
Awesome. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Absolutely.
Hi, my name is Danielle, and I'm also active duty Navy, and I'm currently stationed in San Diego. And
Nice.
I'm in the process of transitioning. I'll be getting out in the next year, so I'm pretty much exactly 12 months out. So my experience with LinkedIn is pretty much similar to you, Michael. Everybody was like, oh, get a LinkedIn. So I just kind of slapped a photo on there, created a profile, and I was like, yeah, okay. And it really wasn't until like I started my transition process and going to TAP that everybody started drilling in how important LinkedIn really is. And, you know, just by scrolling through the profiles, you can see like, okay, this is pretty big, this is serious, and this is gonna something that I should really take the time to really like dedicate myself to. So I mean, the majority of my career I've been in the ComSec world, like security manager, like things like that. I've done a little bit of networking and IT. That's actually what I'm doing here now. So I'm just kind of getting into it, and I want to transition into IT more so. I'm not really interested in staying in the security manager ComSec part of the house, but I'm looking more and more into customer relations management type field. So, but I guess my goal for today is really just to, like she said before, just to, you know, make my profile more appealing. You know, I mean, if I can grow my network in the process, that's a bonus too, but just definitely how to maximize the usage of my profile.
All right. Awesome. Good deal. All right. So, so far we've heard from 3 different people, and the really one thing I wanted to highlight just from all 3 is, you know, they talked about specifically like how to build your LinkedIn profile, how to network correctly, and how to expand within your industry or the field that you want to expand into. So that's exactly what we're going to cover today. So if you're here for those specific things, you are right here for the right thing, and we're going to make sure and get you through it. Quick housekeeping items, just to make sure if you're on, if you could mute your device, whether it's computer or if it's your cell phone itself, just to make sure there's no background noise as we're going through the topic today. Obviously, there are going to be some questions, and then I will ask those for you, and you can come off mute real quick, give that quick answer, and then go back to mute for me, please. So let's go ahead and jump in. LinkedIn. Within LinkedIn, as soon as you search for someone on LinkedIn, they're going to see 3 big key things. That is going to be your profile picture. It will be your background banner. And it will be your title. Those are your first big things. If you are not using that real estate correctly, you will get passed up for opportunities. Here's what I mean. For my profile, and I'm going to use my profile for the example, and then we're going to go through and we're going to look at some of those profiles as well as we talk. But for my profile, I dress for the position I want, not the position I have. And that's a very big difference. It's a very big distinction as well. For me, I want to be in a position that is a leadership type or is system administrator or network administration. So in the IT industry, that is more of a senior role as a more advanced role. And typically people that are in that position, I guess the easiest way to say it was they have a particular type of dress code that you would follow. So for me, I wear that suit, and I'm very deliberate in how I have my profile picture set up. If you notice, it is a half body shot. So it's from my chest up. Nice suit. I use very specific personal brand colors. So for me, my personal brand colors are blues and whites. So you notice I have a teal dress shirt on. I even have a blue and white tie on. And I deliberately tied my tie in a very specific manner because it catches the eye. You have that cross cut pattern on a tie. It looks neat. It looks interesting. It just draws attention to it. The other part about my profile picture is the background itself. I live in the Pacific Northwest area. So for me, the Pacific Northwest is known for being in the nature. It's very woodsy in our area. So I deliberately chose a background photo, or I chose my photo and the background behind it to incorporate that Pac Northwest feel to it. But I subdued it because I didn't want that to be the main focus, because the main focus should be you, right? This is your first interaction with that recruiter, that hiring manager, that person that wants to hire you for that next job. So that needs to be spot on. The next thing we're going to jump to is going to be your LinkedIn profile banner. So your LinkedIn profile banner it should be very apparent of what you do right now. So for me, just by looking at this background banner, what would you say that I do?
I would say you're more in somewhere like a leadership or a management position, like clearly.
All right, absolutely. And that's the exact field that I'm going for. I am looking at direct leadership positions and leadership specifically within the IT industry. So for my LinkedIn background banner, I paid someone to do this. Don't pay someone if you don't need to, by any stretch of the imagination. What I'm going to do is, before we're done with this Zoom call, I'm going to put an article inside of the chat box for all of you to go to. Inside of that article, there's going to be 3 links. One of those links is going to be for a website called Canva. It is a free resource. It has a ton of free LinkedIn specific backgrounds that you can customize for you yourself. That's it. And it costs you nothing, which is awesome. So you can go in there, you can make your own banner, you can have it speak to the industry you want to get into, whether that's cybersecurity, whether it's IT, whether it's hospitality, or if it's a leadership position. They have tons and tons and tons of background banners completely free. Next thing I want to talk about is going to be your title. There are 3 places on LinkedIn where a recruiter can find you. That is going to be your title, your about section, and your experience section. Recruiters are given a list from their hiring manager that says, hey, I need you to find someone that is a system administrator. If I don't have system administrator inside of my title, my about section, or my experience section, I can't be found. So I believe someone had pointed out, Danielle, it might have been you that pointed out that you were looking to try and be found by people here on LinkedIn. This is how you do it. Your title is probably one of the most valued pieces of real estate on your profile itself. Because when you search for someone on LinkedIn, the first thing that they're going to see is they're going to see your profile picture, your background banner, and your title. This needs to speak directly to the industry you are trying to get into. For myself, as the example, I put IT professional, system administrator, network administrator, project manager, because these are the things that I want to get into and what I want recruiters to find me for. One thing I want to make sure and clear up, I get asked this question a lot when I do these one-on-ones or I do these group calls, is why do I have this section here that says talks about, and then it has a couple of different hashtags in there. The reason for that is because my profile is set for creator mode turned on. Here's my recommendation. If you're new to LinkedIn, do not turn on creator mode. And the only reason why I say that is because creator mode, how it works with LinkedIn and the rest of the algorithms that are on LinkedIn, it actually restricts your content from being viewed if you don't post certain amount of times during a week. So if you're new to LinkedIn, just leave creator mode off, leave it alone, wait until your network starts to grow past that 500 plus count or that 1,000 plus follower count, then you can turn creator mode on and experiment with it. I'm fortunate in the sense of when I turned my creator mode on, I had already met both of those wickets before I even realized that there was wickets to hit. So it didn't affect me or it didn't hurt me at all. But for someone who is brand new, highly recommend do not turn it on for now. Moving on, we're going to talk about the about section. All right, your about section.
Quick question for you.
Yeah, of course.
What you were the title section. So your advice is that even if we're not technically working in that field yet, we should just go ahead and put that in our title. So for instance, if I'm interested in going into customer relations management, that should be something that we include in the title, just so that it'll hit or pick up on those keywords.
Ooh, Danielle, that is a great question. Absolutely. All right, so let's kind of cover that just a little more in depth. LinkedIn is fact. It is truth. It is reality. What you put on LinkedIn should be a direct reflection of you. There are very, very, very few places on LinkedIn where you get to tell your story about you. And we're going to cover those. My recommendation is your title needs to be the positions you are trying to get into and you have experience in. Example, if I want to be an astronaut, but I have zero training in how to be an astronaut, I would not put it here. The same goes for different job titles and positions. You know, Danielle, you mentioned you want to do customer relations manager. There are other ways to put it in to your profile without it being in your title section. If you have no experience, my personal recommendation is not to put it in here. I would, however, put it in your about section or your experience section, and we'll cover that here in just a little bit. So I know that's kind of a half answer for you, Danielle, but I promise you we're going to cover more of that when we get further on in the call here. So hopefully that answers at least some of it.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Are there any other questions before I move on? All right. So going to continue on, let's take a look at the about section. So as I was starting to talk about the about section, a recruiter will spend on average about 30 to 60 seconds on your profile before they move on to the next candidate. For your about section, your first 2 or 3 lines need to speak directly to the recruiter. Here's what happens. The recruiter is given a sheet of paper, and that sheet of paper has a bunch of keywords on it because their hiring manager told them you need to find someone that fills these certain wickets. Examples are, hey, I need to find someone who is a network administrator that has at least 4 years of experience as a network administrator. So as someone is searching for me, they see, oh, hey, there's network administrator in the title. I go in the about section. Oh, IT professional, 8+ years of experience as a system and network administrator. Okay, I meet the metric for the recruiter, which means that recruiter is now going to change their time. Instead of 30 to 60 seconds, now they're going to spend about 5 to 10 minutes on my profile, maybe. And that's if I hit some more of the key things. So for your about section, make sure that your first 2 lines here speak to your experience within the field you're trying to get into, because that's about how long you are, that's about how much room you have for a recruiter to notice you. Now, if they like you enough, they are going to expand your about section. This is where you get to expound upon some of the things you have experience in. And as I mentioned before, this is one of the few places where you get to put a little bit about yourself. This is where your soft skills are going to help you break yourself out from the rest of the herd. My example that I use is I use the first 2 lines to give my years of experience in specific fields that I'm interested in. My example is going to be system and network administrator as well as project management. My next 2 sections are who I am. This is who Michael thinks he is. This gives the hiring manager that warm fuzzy, if you will, of who is Michael and will he be an asset in my company? Will he be an asset for my team? will she be an asset for my team? This is where you get to tell a little bit about your story. So Danielle, to your question about whether you can put, customer relations manager in here, this is where you get to put some of that stuff. It also helps because this is one of the searchable areas. So if you put customer relations manager somewhere in here when you're talking about yourself, this is exactly where you can do that and explain, hey, I want to get into customer relations management because XYZ. Now, I am very, very systematic when it comes to my profile on LinkedIn. So if you noticed at the very top, I have my title section. My title section specifically says IT professional, system administrator, network administrator. When I go to my about section, I have individual breakouts for each one of my items inside of my title. And then I give a very umbrella view of what I have done in that specific section. So for an IT professional, 8 years of experience as an administrator for 2 networks. My experience ranges from help desk to a network administrator. Same thing with system administrator, network administrator, project manager. What this does is it gives that hiring manager and it gives that recruiter the ability to go through their little check sheet and say, hey, does this candidate meet the requirements to move past me and go to a hiring manager and be interviewed? That is why I set up my profile in this manner, because it gives them that information right off the bat. They don't have to ask for it. It's just there. The last piece I want to talk about inside the about section is going to be certifications. Like I said, there's only 3 places inside of LinkedIn that's able to be searched. So in here, I put certifications held, and then I just list the certifications that I have right now. We got a hand raised. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Michael.
Hi.
About the about section, is it important that it's this lengthy? Can one keep it very short, or does it have to be this long?
It can be as long or as short as you want. I will tell you that I have done one-on-one profile reviews with some that their about section was 2 paragraphs long, and that was it. And it works. It's all a matter of the keyword search. What I always tell people when I do these reviews is you can keep it as small as you want, but understand that when you do that, you could potentially reduce the amount of searches that you're going to be found in. Because as you add in additional keywords into your about section here, the easier it's going to be for recruiters to find you. So to answer your question, and kind of 2 parts there, yes, you can keep it as short as you would like to. That is absolutely fine, as long as you hit the main keywords that you're looking for. Or if your net is being cast out for a little bit larger section, then absolutely I would recommend spending a little extra time on your about section and adding in those extra keywords with an explanation to them. So hopefully that answers your question. I know it's kind of a 2-parter answer right there.
Thank you very much. I totally get it.
Of course.
So I wanted to ask a question about that. So as far as building that about section and like you said, keywords and things, so does that have to do with maybe looking at like going back and looking at job openings and seeing what kind of keywords that they use or phrases that they may be using in those, for those different postings, and then maybe going back and using those, like that type of thing? Is that what we should be mindful of, like the keywords that they're using in the job advertisement, and then turning around and finding a way to fit those into our about section?
Absolutely. You've hit it right on the head. I mean, that right there is it. I was going to cover that later on in the topic, but you just nailed it right there. It does take a little bit of prep work when you go through and you start looking at the keywords that you need to start looking for. That homework essentially is going to be looking at job positions and figuring out what they're looking for. An example would be, I did a one-on-one interview with someone who wanted to get into the project management world for construction. And admittedly, I have zero experience when it comes to construction project management. I just don't understand it. But what I do understand is LinkedIn. So I did a quick search for project management, and I added in the keyword of construction on there. And there are certain words that construction companies use when they're describing how they want their projects run. I told them, hey, here's what I recommend. Let's add 2 or 3 or 4 of these specific words, because they're the same ones that are getting used in all of these job postings. A month later, he messaged me. He's like, hey, Michael, I want to really thank you, because a recruiter found me about 2 weeks after we talked, and I changed my profile and I interviewed, and now I am a project manager for a small company in the state that he was in. And it's all because he did the research and looked at those job postings. So Danielle, you hit it right there on the head. That's exactly what you need to do. But again, that's one of the things on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is truth. If you don't have that skill, don't put it on your profile. Because at any point you could be searched for that. And if a recruiter likes you and they get you in for their initial interview, and you go to your technical interview and you don't know what you're talking about, it's going to be pretty clear and apparent right then and there on the spot. So make sure you're very deliberate when you add stuff to your profile. Great question. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Let's go and shift to the experience section here. So experience is super easy to do, but it's super complicated. It can be difficult. My recommendation when it comes to experiences is the title needs to match the industry that you're trying to get into. Danielle, this is going to be specifically for you and any other veterans or active duty military that I have inside this call right now. Our job titles do not match the civilian world at all. So you have to find a way to match them to a civilian counterpart. And then for the people that are in here that are not military, but they're trying to get into a position that they want in an industry, you have to understand their language. An example being, I went through a project management course and I understood the terms and concepts, but I didn't understand the civilian terms and concepts of it. So it was like I was speaking Martian on planet Earth. The same thing goes on LinkedIn. If you're not using the correct language, the correct verbiage, the shorthand names for things in the industry you're trying to get into, there's no way for you to be able to properly convey your experience to a hiring manager or a recruiter. That also limits your ability on being found by a recruiter and a hiring manager, as we just talked about. So when you're going through and you're adding experiences, make sure that that title of the experience matches industry. So if you're customer relations, use their words. If you're construction, if you're hospitality, if you're hospital IT, because hospital IT is different from enterprise IT. Make sure you're using the correct terminology. Specifically inside of your experience section, this is where you get to do the very, very granular or very detailed listings of the things that you've done. So when you go through and you look at your profile, you have your title, which is just the basic overall. It's just the review. Like, hey, I'm a system administrator. Okay, well, that's great, Michael. What have you done? Well, then you look at the about section. And I was like, okay, well, I'm a system administrator for the following things, which is it's vague, but it's specific enough to catch attention. Your experience section is where you get to say, okay, well, I have a system administrator with these specific items. I have done Active Directory. I have done group policies. I have worked with domain controllers, Office 365. This needs to speak to the industry. So if you are hospital or if you are hospitality and you work at a hotel chain. Keywords for you will be customer service relations, daily tickets, services. Those are your keywords in that field. And again, that's where you have to do a little bit of research and you have to figure out what those keywords are so you can add them to your experience section. But this is where you get to be very detailed. So an example here, test equipment operation to include, and I include very, very specific test equipment that I have operated and I know how to use. Because if someone is a hiring manager and they want to find someone to work specifically with a OTDR or an OLTS, then they have it here. I spelled it out, and then I also gave the acronym. That's very important when it comes to keyword searches. For your experiences, my recommendation is make sure your experiences speak to the industry to which you're trying to get into. If you worked at Taco Bell, that's great, because during COVID, I completely understand that people were put into a very, very tough situation during that pandemic, which is still ongoing right now. My example, again, I'm going to use is hospitality. I did a one-on-one with someone who was hotel management for 18 years. And then she ended up without a job because the hotel industry took such a major hit. So she wanted to change into IT. But all of her experiences spoke directly to hospitality, and it wasn't helping her. But there's a way around that. Any job you work at where you have to deal or interact with or interface with customers, you are doing customer relations. Use that to your advantage. So for her, I actually had her change her experiences section and change it to where her customer relations shine through, so that when she tried to get a help desk position for IT, she already had the customer service side of it down. All she had to give experience in was, hey, I know how to help someone reset their password or help someone reset their phone. Use your experience to your advantage. You just need to find a way to translate it, again, into the industry you're trying to get into. For your experiences, I highly recommend, if you have the ability to include some type of photo, some award that you received, some commendation or recommendation that you got, add that into your experience section. The reason why is because when a hiring manager is going through and they're taking a look at your profile, they will inherently stop on something that has an attachment to it. So for me, as a learning and development manager, I have my award citation attached to it. Because if I were to go through and look at nothing but blocks and blocks and blocks of text, I'm going to get lost. Humans are inherently attracted to abnormal things. That's just how our brains work. So by putting a picture in here, I have automatically stopped their brain process and I have directed them to this one thing and one thing right here. Oh, he does curriculum development. So that's a recommendation. If you have photos of your job, where you're at, a photo of you in front of your workplace, add that in, because it adds a mental block, which is a good thing for a hiring manager, so they see that experience if you want to highlight it. All right, education. When it comes to education, you need to add in whatever you have. If you have college experience, if you have your high school degree, for all of those that are overseas joining us right now, if you went through a university or you went through a type of grade school, sorry, not grade school, if you went through some type of technical school, then absolutely add that into your education piece for sure. For licenses and certifications, they are based off of date that you receive them. There is no way for you to highlight a specific certification. So for me, I have Security Plus through CompTIA. But unfortunately, because I got that certification in 2015, it doesn't show up as one of my top 3 things. So it's one of those things you just kind of have to add them in as you get them. There is kind of a trick way to get it to float to the top. What you can do is you can add in your certification and you can edit it, and you can change the issue date to a date that's more recent than all of your other ones. Some of those I really wouldn't recommend. For example, my CompTIA Security Plus certification I achieved whenever I was in 2015, and that was under CIS 301. Now the program is CIS 601, so it is much newer. So I don't necessarily want to change that certification just so I can get it highlighted up here. That's why in my About section, if I scroll back up here, I have Security Plus listed in here because it's a keyword searchable area. Licenses and certifications are not searchable on LinkedIn. All right, volunteer experience. Volunteer experience is great. What that really does is it gives you that well-rounded feel about you. So for me, I do volunteer experience outside of my professional work for high schools. So I add that in as a, just as a, hey, this is what I continue to do on an ongoing basis. And really all that does is it gives me a little bit of an edge when it comes to the soft skills portion of an interview. Next thing, skills and endorsements. Skills and endorsements are critical. They're super important, and here's the reason why. You can have a maximum of 50 skills and endorsements on your LinkedIn profile. You can only have 3 top skills on your LinkedIn profile. And again, I did my profile very systematically. My title matches my About section, which matches my Experience section, which matches my skills. I have project management, network administration, system administration, because I want to highlight to a recruiter that these are the jobs that I'm looking for. The other great thing about skills and endorsements is as you go through and you scroll through people's profiles, you will notice only the top 3 unless you click on this show more function here. Most people will only look at your top 3 skills and that's it. So you want to make sure to capitalize on the top 3. The easiest way to do that is when you go here, skills and endorsements, you go to this little pencil, you take and you pull this up. It pulls up this sub menu. You have on the left-hand side these little green pins. You can click on these green pins and remove or add your top 3. Then on the right-hand side, you have these 4 dashed lines. You can actually click, and you can drag them to the position that you want them to be in. As you add your 50 skills, go through and rearrange your skills inside of the subcategories, because this is just as important. If I'm a hiring manager and I want to hire Michael as a system administrator, but I want to see if they have been endorsed for some of the skills like Active Directory or Microsoft Office, I can go through and see if I have been endorsed for any of those. But people are only going to endorse me if I put them in a logical order. So if you notice here, inside of industry knowledge, my top 6 have someone who's endorsed me, but my bottom ones have nothing. Because generally speaking, humans in general will take a look at the first couple of ones, and that's it. That's why it's critical for you to go through and not only adjust your top 3, but adjust them in here as well. That way, if I'm feeling the need to endorse you as a person, I'm going to go through and say, okay, well, program management, information technology, network security. Yep, I'll endorse those 3 because those are the top 3 inside of this section, and I'm done. So spend the time, add in the 50 skills, and then make sure that you arrange them in the correct order that you want them to be seen. All right, recommendations. Recommendations are great. Recommendations are someone else's view or opinion of you. It is not something that you can do for yourself, which is amazing because it's someone else giving you kudos and props for a job that you have done in the past or a job you're currently doing right now. If you want to give a recommendation, I absolutely recommend it. Here's what I tell people whenever they do recommendations. Make sure the recommendation is for a something that they've done, a service they provided you. If you had an employee, recommend them. You know, hey, Michael was an amazing employee for me. Not only did he do his normal day-to-day, he also took the time to do X, Y, and Z, which is outside of his job description. That is great because when it comes down to a hiring manager looking at you for your soft skills section, they can go through and say, hey, Alan and Petra said Michael is a great guy because of X, Y, Z, whatever that is. Accomplishments. All right, there's a ton of things that you can do on LinkedIn. You can add a bunch of different stuff. You can add accomplishments, you can add education. Really, the sky's the limit here. When I talk to my IT industry personnel or people that are just now getting into IT, I always recommend that they start a project and I have them put in their home network into this project. This can go for any industry. If you are trying to drive into the customer relations management, you can do volunteer work, which counts towards customer relations. So if you have local county fairs, if you have big events that happen with the town and you volunteer to help run their ad campaign, or you volunteer to help them with seating arrangements, that's personnel management right there. You can claim that as a project and add it in. So I highly recommend you take advantage of this accomplishments section because there's a lot of things you can do with it on LinkedIn. All right, last thing I want to talk about on profile reviews before we get into the networking piece is going to be how to set up your profile so that other people can see it. So if you go to the top of your page, on the right-hand side, you're going to see this edit public profile and URL. Most of the time when I do one-on-one interviews and I help people with their profiles, they don't realize that their URL has the alphanumeric identification code at the end of their name. So if you look at mine, mine just says Michael-Neil-Refuerzo because I changed it, but this is how you do it. You go edit your custom URL, you click on this little pencil here, and then you can free form type whatever you want into this section. You're limited to 100 characters, and there are certain characters you're not allowed to put in there because it breaks the hyperlink essentially for your URL. So dashes are always great. They're simple, they're easy to use. If you have an industry or a company you're trying to promote, you can put that in there as well. Then all you got to do is click save and it'll update your profile. So absolutely, if you're listening to this right now, you hear my voice, please change your URL and get rid of that alphanumeric identification code at the end of your profile. Next thing I'm going to jump into is going to be your profile visibility. If you haven't done it, I highly recommend it. And this is kind of a case-by-case basis, right? Because everyone's just a little bit different in how they feel about their personal identifiable information. I subscribe to the mindset of I make everything public. I have nothing to hide, and I want everyone to see my stuff. So I have my profile set to public. I have my profile photo set to public, and every last one of my sections inside of my LinkedIn profile is set to show. That is because I want recruiters to find me. And as I restrict items, recruiters can't see that information. So highly recommend you go through and change your stuff to be public as much as possible. But again, that's a personal choice, right? Everyone's just a little bit different. Some people don't like having their photo out there until they're connected with someone. So please, by all means, this isn't me telling you to go change your stuff to public. It's just my recommendation that you do. Otherwise, it makes it a little bit harder for you to be found when it comes to LinkedIn. All right, natural breaking point. We just finished talking about profile setup. We talked about your picture, your banner, your title, your about section, your experience. What do you have for your skills, educations, licenses and certifications, recommendations, and then how to change your URL and your profile so it can be seen. Are there any questions from the group right now that they want to get that out there before I shift on to my next topic here?
I have a question.
Hey, Aaron, it's good
Hey,
seeing you.
I love what you guys are talking about. Awesome. It's wonderful. With under your name with the title, I am curious as whether to, I've seen other profiles that have aspiring IT or aspiring cybersecurity.
Mhm.
Do you think the word aspiring would be a deterrent to a recruiter or maybe an advantage?
Here's what I recommend. Your title is one of the few places on LinkedIn that is, I consider prime real estate. I don't like filler words inside your title. If you want to put aspiring cybersecurity analyst or aspiring IT professional, put that in your about section.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Your title, you're limited to a certain amount of characters inside there already. Use that to your advantage.
Got it. Will do.
All right. I think I saw a hand just get raised. Oh, maybe I missed it. Take a look here. All right, nope, I missed it. All right, any other questions?
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah, of course.
When you put your JPEG, I saw it on the under the accomplishments or I forget what section you were in. You had the file, the pictorial file.
Mhm.
Is LinkedIn and I used to be putting files on the computers quite all the bit, but are they taking only certain files like JPEGs, PDFs, TIFFs, or are there some file formats that it won't take?
LinkedIn restricts some file formats. What I recommend you do is you stick with JPEGs and you stick with PDF files.
Easier for it to read, probably.
And there's a couple reasons why. One of them is they're easier to read. The other thing is that they're typically free licensed software that everyone has.
Right. Okay.
So if you try to upload a specific Unity type file, the only people that can open it are going to be people that have licenses for Unity and can open up that file. So I highly recommend stick with Paint. Just copy and paste into a Paint file and then save that because everyone has Paint. Resolution's not that great, but PDF is another one. There's always free versions of PDF out there and it's easy to open. So I recommend sticking with the JPEGs. I recommend sticking with PDF files or specific hyperlinks. So in here, I specifically put in hyperlinks to URLs that I want people to go to and look at.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No, that's a great question, Aaron. Thank you. All right, got a hand raised. Go ahead.
Hi. In uploading CV format, do you recommend uploading them in a PDF format or Word format?
I recommend using PDFs. I prefer PDFs, and the only reason why I like PDFs more than other types of formats, PDFs end up coming out with a better resolution on a screen, whether that is handheld device or PC. So in that case, I would recommend PDFs.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Any other questions before we get on to the next topic?
One last one, sorry.
Of course. No, go ahead.
File formats are making me thinking of, I know there's a video icon on your About Me section, but have you ever seen LinkedIn put other types of videos or clips in their profile for, I guess, advertising, not advertising, but I guess searches as well?
No, great question, Aaron. Just make sure, I think that's kind of a two-pronged question, so I'll have to do two different answers. So for here, I do have a profile video, which is a 30-second introduction of me. That is a feature that LinkedIn started to roll out. Initially, they restricted it to people that had creator mode turned on and had a certain metric for followers and a certain metric for connection count. It is a feature that everyone is going to have access to, and I think it's supposed to come out sometime late this year or the beginning of next year. So everyone's going to get the opportunity to do a video introduction. So there's that piece. For videos for your company or for yourself as advertisement, and you hit it right on the head, Aaron, it is considered advertisement at that point. Yes, they do put them on there. The only way to put them on is going to be inside of the experience section or your about section through a URL link. You can't post the actual video on your profile. Now, on a post, you can absolutely put video. In fact, LinkedIn has a LinkedIn Live function that you can post live video on LinkedIn directly. So you don't have to link a external URL, external YouTube channel. You can go directly through LinkedIn. So hopefully that answers your question. I know there's kind of two different ones there.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. In the interest of time, let's go ahead and keep pushing forward, and then we'll wrap up with a couple questions at the end. So one of the things that was brought up right.
Please. Sorry. Please.
No,
Quick
of course.
Question.
Yeah.
How do you add the interest section? I can't seem to find it in my profile.
Interests.
I saw
Oh,
it.
so interests are what you have followed or what you like. An example being, if I am trying to look for a company, let's go to a company I know of real quick, just to give you this example. All right, so Bungie is a gaming entertainment company. When I go to their page, I have the ability to do this thing called following. You can follow that company. That will show up in your interests. Go back to my page here. Sorry for that. So go down here to the bottom. That will show up in your interests. That is what this section is. So these are some of the things that I have followed here on LinkedIn. And that's something we're actually going to dive into a little bit more in detail when I talk about how to network and what networking strategies you have available to you. So that's actually a great leading question to get into this next topic here. All right. So this is an exercise for everyone. I need everyone who's on right now to do this exercise with me. So PC, tablet, if you're on a phone, it's going to be a little bit harder to do because you're going to have to switch back between Zoom call and your LinkedIn app. So if you're on a phone, I understand you won't be able to do it quite as fast. So I'll make sure and go as slow as possible here while trying to keep up the pace. So in your search section, look for a position you want to do, whether that's customer relations, IT professional, hotel manager, Project management. Type in a job you want to do. So for my example, I'm going to do project manager. And I am going to search for project manager. What that does for me in LinkedIn is it opens up a completely separate window, and it gives you these 13 different filters for LinkedIn. We're going to talk about networking strategies. How do I network with someone in an area that I'm in a company that I'm interested in a very specific niche field? So for me, I am going to look for project manager, and everyone, I want you to click on this little bubble that says people. So we're going to look for people within project manager. So in the chat, go ahead and type, what does your number look like right now? What is your number for whatever industry that you are trying to get into, what you want to look at, just to try and get some comparisons here. So for me, project manager, I have 29.6 million results for something with project manager. So let's take a look at the chat here. All right, so I've got 167,000, 4 million. Oh my goodness. Let's go a couple more in here. 225,000, 23,000. Okay, so those are huge numbers, right? 163,000. Those are massive numbers. There's no way at 10 million results. Oh my goodness. Danielle, you were the winner for the day. There's no way for you to connect with that many people. One, LinkedIn restricts you to about 40,000 first type connections. So there's no way for you to connect with that many. But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to do targeted networking. We're going to reduce the amount of numbers we have by going to locations. I want you to click that little bubble. And when you click on that bubble, I want you to put the closest metropolitan area next to you. Now, caveat to this, if you don't live anywhere near a metropolitan area, that's okay. Put the area that you want to work in. An example I have is I did a one-on-one with someone who lived in the state of Iowa. The closest metropolitan area was the state capital that was 150 miles away. So there was no way that this was going to work for them. But they had a decently large city that was close to them. So I had them put that in their example or in their search. So for me, I live in the Seattle, Washington area. So I'm going to add Seattle. And then most major metropolitan areas have a name other than what the actual name of their state, their city is. So for Seattle, we actually have the greater Seattle area, which encompasses Seattle, Redmond, Edmonds, all of those surrounding small towns kind of get lumped into this greater Seattle area. Now I want you to go through and hit show results. So for me, my example, I took my 29.6 million and I shrunk that down to 275,000. But that's still too large. Like that's still kind of a big number. For some of you, like Carlos, perfect example. You're down to 55 already, right? That is a perfect number. Brian, you're going to be one of those examples where instead of you doing the closest metropolitan area, just look for a location that's next to you. So maybe your hometown, the town you live in, maybe some of the surrounding towns. Use that for your search instead. Once you've narrowed it down to location, now we're going to get a little more specific. Is there a company that you just have this dream job? Like, man, if I could work somewhere, I would work at fill in the blank. So for me, I'm going to use Amazon as my example, just because I know Amazon's across the water, so I know I'm going to get a pretty decent result for it. So I'm going to click Amazon, or correction, I'm going to go to current company, click the little drop down, and I'm going to click on Amazon. And I'm going to show results. So I have now restricted or targeted my network from 29.6 million down to 12,000. Now for me, that's still a huge, huge number. The goal right now is to get below 100. So if you're already below that 100 mark point right now, you're golden, you're set. If you're not, and you're still sitting at, above 100, you're sitting in the thousands range, that's okay. We're going to take this to another level to limit those numbers down from my example, 12,000 down to a more reasonable number. Here's how we do this. On the right-hand side, you have your All Filters tab. So we're going to open up All Filters. I'm going to close this chat box just for a little bit here to get this. I'm going to hide this thumbnail. Inside of this All Filters section, it is all of these items that were along the top here. They just put it into a scroll bar submenu off to the side. The goal is to find someone and network with someone that you can make some type of personal connection with. So for me, I am going to use a previous job. So I'm going to add past company. I'm going to add the company. I'm going to add Navy. So I am going to specifically look for someone that is in the greater Seattle area, that works at Amazon, and that used to work in the Navy. So I'm going to go show results. I have taken my 26.9 million search results and I have reduced that to 98 people. Here is the best part about this. Because I want to work at Amazon and I want to work as a project manager, I can take and I can connect with this person and have something in common. So Danielle, perfect, right there, right? You took from 57, which was a good number to get with, down to one specific person. That's even better. Here's why. We're going to connect with everyone. You have a restriction though. LinkedIn restricts 100 connection requests per week. That is a function that LinkedIn put in place because of all the spammers that are out there right now. Unfortunately, it has some extra side effects, which means that I can't connect with as many people per week as I typically would want to. But that's okay. We're going to talk about how to connect with someone. There are two different ways. You have cold connection requests and warm connection requests. A cold connection request is when you click the connect button and you hit send. That is a cold connection request. A little bit of metrics out there for you, for those of you who like numbers. You have about a 40% chance of the person on the other side of the connection request actually accepting it. It's pretty low. When you do a warm connection request, that is when you click on the connect button again, but you add a note. So when I add a note, there's a couple of things you need to understand. One, you're restricted to 300 character counts. That's it. You have 300 characters to get your point across. So my example is going to be this. Good afternoon. Found your profile. I found your profile while looking for professionals, project manager world, industry, whatever your case may be. TRA, let me actually spell correctly here. notice you were also in the Navy. I am transitioning in the next 2 years. I would love to connect with you. All right. I have done a very, very, very generic greeting, but it is very specific to the point where I know that each one of these people have been in the Navy before. What I do is I copy this. I will send this message to Brandon here. I will go to the next person. I'm going to go to Chris. I'm going to go connect. I'm going to add a note. I am going to paste that into my warm connection request, and I'm going to send. And then I'm going to go to Jerry. I'm going to go to Casey. I'm going to go to Ryan. I'm going to go to Matt. And I'm going to go through every last 98 potential connections and send them a warm connection request. Your chances of connecting with someone when you send a warm connection request is about 60%-ish. The more touch points you have with that person, and what I mean by that is the more you have in common with that person, the more likely they are to connect with you. So if I wanted to go even further, I wanted to add a filter. Let's say I attended a college or a university. Let's say I went through Thomas Edison State University here, and I do show results. Well, now there's only 6, but now I have 2 touch points with that person. Hey, Jerry, I am trying to get into the project management industry. I noticed that not only were you in the Navy, but we both graduated from Thomas Edison. I'd love to connect with you and learn more about what a project manager does at Amazon. Now you can get a little more personalized with your connection requests. Those connection requests have about an 80% chance of being accepted, because not only are you trying to connect with them, but you have multiple things in common. This type of networking, this type of targeted networking, is the exact same thing that you would do for trying to find a job. So if I'm doing project manager, let's just go ahead and start from the very beginning, just project manager. And I want to do jobs. And then I want to do company. And I want to do Amazon. And show results. And I do all filters. And now I can filter it down to, hey, I want to work in Seattle. Let me show those results. Hey, what kind of job type is it? I want full-time only. Okay, well, I'm going to search this down even more. This question was brought up earlier when you talk about those keywords. How do you find those things? This is how you find those things. This is how you find those keywords. I go down here and I take a look at the basic qualifications, 1 to 2 years of experience managing executive escalations, detail-oriented, analytical, proactive. Those are keywords. Those are action words. Those are the words that I put into my about section when I talk about myself. Michael is detail-oriented, analytical, and proactive when it comes to project management positions. Well, I just hit 3 of those main keywords. Plus, I did the actual title that I want. So this search function up here will do wonders for you. All right. Questions. We've been going now for about a little over an hour. I want to leave the floor open to any questions you may have. And it could be about anything in regards to how you're set up your LinkedIn profile or how to do searches on LinkedIn. So just go and open the floor. Don't raise your hand. You can just come on and ask a question. Oh, it was just on mic. All right.
I have a question.
Of course.
Do you have any advice for how to deal with gaps? Or, like any suggestion on how to deal with gaps in work or any gaps at all, actually?
Gaps in work are a tough thing to get into. When you're looking at resume building and you're trying to, you're trying to put your best foot forward. Talking with some of the HR professionals that I network with right now, they are starting to understand that some people just have gaps in their resumes now, especially because of the pandemic. That hit a lot of industries very, very, very hard. So there's going to be natural gaps in there. If you're trying to shore up some of those gaps, what I recommend is putting something in your experience section to show that you are still trying to progress in the industry you're trying to get into. For my example that I would use IT. So if you were trying to build your skills within IT, but you were previously in food service, you can add an experience section that says, hey, I have been working on my networking. I have done classes on how to do subnets, how to work with Active Directory. You can add that in as an experience to kind of help shore up that gap. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, realistically, you're still going to have a gap, and that resume is going to show that whenever you try and submit that. But there are ways to show that, hey, just because I wasn't working doesn't mean I wasn't active preparing myself for this position. So as long as you highlight that in your resume to fill in that like gap piece in there, you should be okay.
Did you say to put that in the experience section, the about section?
You can absolutely put that in your experience section.
Okay.
All right, because again, your experience section is going to be where you get to give your detailed explanation of what you've done. Your about section is what you can use to give that umbrella overview of, hey, I have, X amount of years of experience as a, fill in the blank, XYZ. The experience section is where you get to show, hey, I have learned these specific hard skills.
Okay, thanks so much.
Absolutely. What other questions are out there?
Okay, I have a question here. This goes back to the headline, but that's something that I'm trying to experiment with. Do you recommend including the key soft skills, like one or two keywords in the headline as well, along with the technical skills?
If you're trying to find a position and that job title lists that soft skill as one of the primary things that they're looking for, then yes, absolutely, add that in. What I tend to find is your title, realistically, your title should probably be limited to the actual job position that you're trying to get. Leave those soft skills and those other keywords in your about section.
Right. My only the only reason I would want to do that is, as you said, the first things that a recruiter looks at is your picture, your headline, and your banner. So if in the headline it kind of like I just wanted to stand out a little bit in terms of not just exhibiting the rhetorical ID help desk, system administrator, network administrator. So if there was something that I could do different but at the same time relevant, that could help me stand out.
And absolutely, if you're trying to show that wow factor of, hey, I have this major skill, that is a good way to go about it. Just realize that your title is limited to the character count. So that, that real estate is, it's it's very small. You have a very small footprint, but it plays such a huge factor in how people look at you. So if you want to add in a soft skill in there to highlight that, you know, that one soft skill that you're just amazing at, add it in. My recommendation would be to leave that into your about section and highlight those soft skills in there when you talk about your, you know, who is Michael? Well, Michael is this, and I have these amazing soft skills that are available.
Right. Right. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I have a question on this. And I think I figured it out, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
With your title, after each section, you're using, I think, with the backslash key. Are you not? That little
So that is it's called a bar, but
Yeah.
if you take a look at your keyboard, if you look right above the enter key,
Yeah, I thought that one.
that is the bar. It's just you hold down the shift key and then you hit
Right.
that and it brings up this this vertical line. That's actually a great point that you bring up, Aaron, and a lot of people don't understand this or realize this when they're doing their profile. When you're building your title, don't forget to put a space in between your bar and the next thing. The reason why is because if you take and you put IT professional and then put a bar and then put system administrator and then put a bar and you don't leave those spaces, you essentially turn your title into this long run on sentence and you can't do a keyword search inside your title. So make sure if you use the bar, if you use the backslash, a forward slash, tack marks, just make sure there's a space in between them. Otherwise, what happens is you can't be found using a keyword search.
Interesting. Good to know. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Michael, quick question about your profile picture.
Huh?
Were you able to do that yourself, or do you recommend hiring a professional? Because here in the San Diego area, they do have a lot of professional photographers that advertise services for professional headshots, specifically to use for websites like LinkedIn and Indeed and, you know, all the job websites. Do you recommend people take advantage of that? Or is it like, did you just do yours yourself, or did you actually have a professional take your photo? I mean, because it looks really good. So
Thank you. Thank you. So to answer your question, here's what I say. I would not recommend spending money on a profile shot of you because most cameras nowadays already have such amazing camera quality. You can get away with having a friend or a family member take your photo for you. Don't do a selfie because selfies will always look like selfies. Be cognizant of your background. For this photo that's here, quick little fun story. I actually, my wife does family photos. She loves doing family photos every year. So what I did is during my family photo, I asked my photographer, I was like, hey, would you mind taking a couple of photo shots of me, you know, while we're at this photo shoot for me, the wife, and the kids? And like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's fine. And, you know, I won't even worry about it. You know, it's just 2 photos. And the only thing I'm going to do is, you know, subdue the background, but I'm not going to do any editing. I'm like, that's fine. So in this photo, I'm actually wearing a pair of cargo shorts and a pair of flip-flops because we did it outside. And then I just put my suit shirt and my tie and my jacket on. And then I made sure that my hair was at least decent enough when I took this photo. But I've done one-on-ones with people that have a new iPhone and they put it up on a little stand and they took the, you know, the countdown timer, they stood back and they took the photo and it looked great. It's the same quality because camera technology on phones are catching up to, you know, SLRs on a regular camera that are out there right now. So yes, you can, if you really want to, if you really want that super, super professional look, absolutely go out. You are going to spend money on it, but I recommend using the free resources that are available to you. And that is one of them. For those military members that are on here right now, Danielle, I know you're one of them. When I post my resources article, do not pay for a professional profile shot because there is a free resource that is offered to military members for a free profile shot from a professional photographer. So that's going to be in the link that I send out in the article that I'm going to send in the chat here in just a little bit. Do not pay for it, get it free. Let's open this chat here, see if there's any other questions that came across.
I have another one for you.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering, when I'm looking at your profile, and I know there's a section that says my next job should offer me,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, devil's advocate or both sides versus when you're getting into it or you are already in whatever field you're in. Is that a deterrent to recruiters, or is it a show of confidence?
Oh, okay. So here's the fun thing about this. This section here is only for you. You can only see this.
Gotcha.
If a recruiter messages you and they're inside their message, it says, hey, this person wants to connect with you and share information. When that happens, you hit accept, they will get this.
Mm-hmm.
So until they request it, this is just for you.
Okay, interesting.
This is one of those things where you have to know the value of yourself. What are you worth and what do you think you're worth? For me, and this is just a personal me, right? Personal me, I know that I run 2 networks. I have a clearance and I have experience not only in the IT industry, but as a leader as well. So my personal value is, this is what I rate my personal value at. Anything within this range, plus the other things that are in there. Whether it shows as a show of confidence or what it is, it comes down to realistic. I was talking to Kevin earlier, just before this, webinar kicked off, and I talked to him about, his, job searches. When you're doing job searches, you can go through 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds of interviews, and they finally get to the end. They're like, all right, hey, what is your price? What would you want to be hired at? Like, oh, well, this is my price. Oh, well, I can't afford that. Okay, well, I guess you just can't afford me then. And that's when it just comes down to a realistic, right? You have to be real with yourself. This number, you have to do some research on. Go through, take a look at the job titles that are in your area. Look at the salary for the area that you're in. And that plays a lot into it. Geographically, a system administrator in my field where I'm at, the median is around this number. If I go to Tennessee, where I was originally born, the average median is around 80,000 because cost of living is completely different in Tennessee. So it depends on geographical location. It depends on the median average for your area. Plus, you have to know your worth. Kevin, you pointed it right there in the chat. Know your worth. That's exactly what it is.
Cool. Thank you. That helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.